Hi all, Courtney Kennedy here from Good Shepherd Food Bank. I am the Nutrition and Education Manager. And I'm cooking in my kitchen today. Today we're making split pea veggie burgers. Split peas are high in protein and they're a wonderful source of fiber. Many of those plant-based beef products that you see on the market are actually pea protein, meaning that they utilize split peas to make that product. So split peas are high in protein as well as fiber and have a very neutral base, which will allow us to add flavor to the burgers. So come cooking with me. To start off, we are going to chop a half a cup of onion and a half a cup of bell pepper. Now you can see here I have a red bell pepper. An orange bell pepper, but you could utilize a red bell pepper or a green bell pepper if you have one. We're just gonna cut this onion. Now be very careful with your fingers. You'll see I'll turn it over to the flat surface so that I'm not cutting my fingers. I'm gonna continue with this onion here to do my best to chop to get a half a cup. You'll see that I have an orange measuring cup in front of me, and that is a half cup measuring cup. So the instructions are, you need a half a cup of onion, but first I'm gonna take my pan and I'm going to get it hot and I'm going to add 1 tablespoon of olive oil. This is a simple olive oil. I keep it in a squirt bottle for convenience. While my olive oil is heating up, I'm going to measure out my onion to see if I do have a half a cup. Oh, look at that, half a cup. What I have chopped already, I can save in a baggie. I can even throw that into a Ziploc baggie and put it in the freezer to start a soup. I'm just gonna move it over here to the side for the moment while I chop my orange bell pepper. So you'll see here I cut the pepper in half and it has the seeds. I'm just gonna simply take that out in this white membrane. I like to cut bell pepper with the waxy side down. That way it tends not to slip when I'm cutting. So I'm gonna go ahead and cut this into strips. Now remember I have my oil heating on my back burner. I'm going to, while I'm cutting this, right before I measure the bell pepper, I'm gonna put the onion in there. So give me 1 second while we chop up this bell pepper, making sure that we keep our fingers curled under. There we go. Let me see it. We know we have a half cup of onion. I'm gonna add that to the saute pan. Now let's measure out our bell pepper. I think we might be good here. Let's see. Oh yeah. Look at this. This is absolutely perfect. Half of bell pepper for me ended up to be a half of a cup. You can hear the sizzle of the onions and the bell peppers. I wish you could smell the aroma that's coming from this. We are going to cook this for roughly 5 minutes until the onions are translucent. The next 2 ingredients we are going to add are 4 ounces of mushrooms. A container of mushrooms is roughly 8 ounces, so you're going to use half of that package. Now you can buy them already sliced, or maybe you have them already sliced, but what we're gonna do is sometimes when you get whole mushrooms, they might be a little dirty because they grow up through the dirt, so we just wanna be sure that we wash that off. I'm using a damp cloth to do that, so this is just a paper towel that you can do to wipe off your mushrooms to remove that dirt. Now that dirt's not really harmless, but we just want to do our best to remove it from the mushrooms. Now these are pretty big mushrooms, right? I can see that they're large in size. So this says to slice the mushrooms. I'm going to slice them thinly, and I think I'm going to chop them down just a hair. And the reason why is because they are so large. So always trying to keep a flat surface. You'll see that that's hard to do with a mushroom when you get kind of to the end. But just do your best to make sure that you're utilizing safe practices with your knife. Again, we're just gonna slice these. Once they're sliced, I think I'm gonna give them another little dice, cut them into smaller pieces. The other ingredient that we're adding is going to be garlic. I have to admit that I do cheat when it comes to garlic. I use jarred garlic, so I'm just gonna use a little bit of this in there. But you could also use fresh garlic if you have that, just chop it up. It's 2 teaspoons of garlic. And the other thing that you can use, if you do not have fresh garlic or garlic in a jar like I have, by all means you can use garlic powder. My recommendation would be to utilize about a teaspoon of garlic powder in this dish. So you can see here, I'm just chopping up these mushrooms. Again, this is 4 ounces of mushrooms, or roughly a half a package of mushrooms. And then again, we're gonna use 2 teaspoons of garlic. You can see here that the onions are translucent, meaning they're clear versus the white when they went into the pan. Oh, I wish you could smell this. We're gonna add 2 teaspoons of garlic. Oh, you can hear that sizzle as I put it in. And then we're going to add those chopped mushrooms that I just chopped up. We're going to continue to cook this for 4 more minutes before adding our next ingredients. Give it a stir. Looking delicious. The next ingredients to go into the pot are going to be a cup of rinsed and picked through split peas, 3 cups of vegetable broth, a half a cup of instant rice, and then a teaspoon of both cumin and coriander. Now, if you don't have either of these, that's a-okay. You can use whatever spices you do have or that you do like. Cumin gives things a very smoky flavor, so it kind of adds the smoke flavor. I'm adding it to this little bowl right here. The next one is coriander. Coriander is actually the seeds of cilantro. So I just took a nice smell of that. It tastes different than cilantro. So if you don't like cilantro, don't be scared of coriander. It does have a different flavor. Again, if you don't have either of these spices, that's a-okay. You don't need to necessarily utilize them in this dish. Just the split peas, the rice, along with the veggies that you can hear sauteing in the background, and the veggie broth will be a great flavor combination. So here we are back at our pot. You can see the wonderful vegetables have now really shrunk down, right? So they've reduced in size and they have a nice golden color to them. That is called caramelization. That adds flavor. That's bringing out the sugars. So we are going to add that 1 cup of split peas, the 3 cups of vegetable broth, about a half cup of instant rice, and those seasonings that we talked about are going right in the pot. I'm gonna give this a stir. What we're gonna do is bring this up to a boil and then reduce it down to a simmer and put the lid on it. You can see here that the mixture is starting to boil. So we're gonna give it a stir. We're gonna put the lid on top and reduce it down to simmer. That means a very, very low boil. So, love that it's boiling. So I'm gonna turn my heat way down to low. Going to add a lid, and we're gonna let this sit for 30 minutes. Because I used instant rice, the cook time on this dish is about 30 minutes. So we're just gonna let this simmer away, and we'll come back to it when it's ready. Well, I have 2 things now. I have a food processor, but if you don't have a food processor, that's okay. You can use a masher if you have a potato masher, or even a fork to do this job. Or if you have a blender, you can also utilize this job. You can see here that we have this wonderful mixture of our split peas, rice, and those veggies that we had. And we're gonna actually add this to our food processor. We're gonna give this just a little process. We don't wanna do much, we just wanna get it mushy enough. Woo! Look at the steam come off that. This is wonderful, wonderful, wonderful smelling. I'm really excited. to get this in here. Again, utilize a fork if you don't have one, or a potato masher if you don't have anything else, like a blender or a food processor. So here we go. You'll see I have another ingredient added here, and that would be some panko breadcrumbs. Now you can utilize regular breadcrumbs. I actually had the ones with Romano cheese that I decided to add. If you wanted to make this gluten-free or even vegan, you could do so by utilizing gluten-free breadcrumbs and even breadcrumbs without some Romano cheese in it. But I thought that that would give a good flavor. So what we're gonna do first is we're gonna put the split pea mixture. Oh, watch out for the blade if you did use a processor. We're gonna add into the bowl that split pea deliciousness mixture with the onions and the rice, the veggie broth. Next, what we're going to do is put in 2/3 of a cup of breadcrumbs. 1/3, 2/3. We are going to need additional breadcrumbs here in a few minutes to bread the veggie burgers once we form them and get ready to cook them. As you can see here, I'm just moving this around. This is extremely hot at this time. So we're just gonna mix the breadcrumbs in. You can see it's even thicker now. Kind of a more will hold together. So that's the consistency that we're looking for. Now be very careful because this is extremely hot at this point. We are going to go ahead and put this in the refrigerator for about 30 minutes to cool it down before and to thicken up before we start forming those patties. So let's get this in the fridge. I'll cover it with plastic wrap and I'll be back after 30 minutes. You can see here we have our end product. The product that we are getting ready to make into patties. Now this is rested in the refrigerator for about 30 minutes, and this is going to make 8 burger patties. So simple here. We'll divide it in half. I'm gonna take that half out. And this is going to make 4 patties. So we'll just form it into a ball, similarly to how we just cut that in half. You can see it's nice and moist. We're going to cut this in half, and then each of those halves in half. So you might see that it crumbles a little, but we're just gonna compress that back together, and we are going to make 8 patties out of this, make them look just like a burger. And they do look like a burger, right? So here we go. I'm going to work on making these 8 patties, and I'm going to use some waxed paper to put them on. Here are our burgers, and we have one final step before we put them in the pan. So we are just going to take a little bit of the breadcrumb that we had from earlier, and we're just gonna put it in the breadcrumb, giving it a nice little coating. You can press it in if you like to get a little extra breadcrumb on there. Of course, you don't have to add the breadcrumb if you don't want to. This could be optional if you wanted to or not add the breadcrumb. But here we have the breadcrumbs ready to go. I have my pan heating up. I'm going to add a little oil. This could be olive oil, canola oil, whatever oil you have on hand. I'm going to just put that in the pan. My pan has been heating, so we should hear a sizzle. And we're gonna put the burger in there. Now we're going to cook this. Remember, this is fully cooked, so it's not like a beef burger that might be raw before you cook it. This is fully cooked, so we're really looking to crisp up the outside and heat through that burger. And then we're going to have a delicious split pea veggie burger. Here we have our finished product, a split pea veggie burger. I'm going to top this with some lettuce. I have put that on a whole wheat roll. You can add your other toppings like ketchup or mustard, but also think about veggies, the way that you can incorporate more veggies into your diet, like lettuce or tomato on there as well. Split pea veggie burgers. Enjoy.